You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Thank you for joining me here today on part 2 of our Cabral HouseCalls, where we're going to be answering more of our community's questions that have come in. I think we got to about 8 questions yesterday. Excited, as always, to see the questions coming in. So many great ones. And of course, we check in over at cabralsupportgroup.com each and every day to answer your questions. And then for those people who want me to read them out loud, on the air, on the podcast, each and every Saturday and Sunday, I'm happy to do that. So, without further ado, I'm going to get right into today's show because we have so many great questions, and my goal is to catch up as quickly as I can from we're reading questions in May all the way up to August. So, looking forward to that. The first question is coming in from Judy, and Judy is writing in from May 12th. Her question is this. Hi, first off, my deepest gratitude for everything you and your team does. You mentioned this on the show before, but I was hoping you could elaborate. I recently found out about my homozygous. I'm homozygous for APOe. I was following a cyclical keto diet for about 2 years before finding out this information. My cholesterol was a high of 253, but my ratios are really good. I'm curious if you think those of us with an allele need to minimize all fats, including monounsaturated sources like olives and avocados, or are you only concerned with saturated? Thank you. Okay, Judy, really great question. Thank you for writing in, and totally agree with you that my team deserves a lot of credit. I mean, they really do. They run and really make the Cabral support group happen over at the Facebook group with Michelle and Laura and Caitlin and Julia answering all the questions over there. And I've got a big and large team that I would love to introduce to you, each and every one of them in the future, because there's so much going on behind the scenes. So I know this question is not about them. You want to know about the APOe genotype. We will talk about that, but I do want to give them the credit that they deserve, because none of the Equilibrium nutrition products and the fulfillment and all of those things would happen if it wasn't for an amazing team. So, Judy, your question is this. Basically, you have an APOe genotype, and if people have not heard about that before, please go to stephencabral.com/podcasts and just type in the search bar APOe, and that's it. That's all you have to type in, APOe. That's your keyword, and every show on the APOe gene will pop up. The reason why this is so important, even if you don't know any of your other genes, it's more important, in my opinion right now, than any of the other ones, because environment, all of those things can turn genes on and off. But this APOe4, whether you're 2 or 3 or 4, and then we get 2 copies, and when we call you homozygous, well, we have 2 copies of that APOe4. So what does that matter? Well, it seems right now, and there's a lot of good literature to back it up, that people who are homozygous for the APOe4 are going to be more prone to basically inflammatory issues in general and not being able to process those saturated fats as well. They are finding that it's all fats in general, but the saturated fats are going to cause more of the inflammation for this specific genotype. It's not my research. A lot of people get upset at me for bringing up research like this, but it's simply because they have an agenda. They want keto, or they want this diet to be right. But the problem is, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for everyone. The APOe genotype 2, they're called alleles, and I've spoken about this before in lengths. You can look up those specific shows, would be much more adapted to or better suited for a higher fat diet. So my question really is, Judy, is this, is like, why are so many people, so they want to hop on that keto bandwagon? And I just don't understand it. Like, I know it's new, and I know it's exciting, and I know we can add fat to everything, and all these different like exogenous based ketones that we can add to our coffee or our food or whatever it might be. But when do we ask the question of why? Why are we doing this, right? Oh, well, we need to boost our mitochondria. Well, there's a lot of ways to boost your mitochondria, and you're not necessarily pumping fat into it. That's not a specific way. When we look at the mitochondria, we're looking at the mitochondria using oxygen. We're looking at the mitochondria using glucose. We're looking at the specific Krebs cycle, which is also called the citric acid cycle, is citric acid being actually converted to malic acid and succinic acid. So that to me, there's a lot of downsides to the keto diet. And if we're using it to work with a specific medical condition, I can understand it. Or if we're helping someone basically with type 2 diabetes, or they're dealing with a lot of insulin dysregulation and insulin sensitivity-based issues, okay, doing that for a period of time, 3 weeks, 6 weeks or so, may not be a bad idea. But for most people, the question just comes back to why. And if your cholesterol is 253, and you can find an article, oh, it might be that not that bad, it might be okay, but why? You're taking chances that you don't need to take, Judy. Because you're not going to be a healthier human being by raising the cholesterol to 253. If you want to make an argument that your cholesterol should not be 140, I could probably get behind that with you. Or even 160, but below 140, we have a lot of research that if your cholesterol is below 140, there's a good chance of immune system dysfunction, of lower hormones, and also greater chance for cancer. But the sweet spot seems to be somewhere between 160 and 200 with an LDL of no higher than 110. Definitely not 130, and ideally somewhere around 100 or below. And again, there are pros and cons to both. But people say, well, if you don't have enough cholesterol, you can't make enough testosterone, you can't make enough hormones in general. That's absolutely correct. They are absolutely correct. But that's why you can run something such as a thyroid adrenal hormone test to look at these specific things. So, Judy, I can't give you that answer that you want to, except that I'm not a believer in getting rid of and dropping your carbohydrates so low that you lose all the benefits of the amount of antioxidants that humans need to take in, which is really 7 to 9 cups per day of fruits and vegetables. And the lower glycemic and the higher fiber ones, the better for the most part, right? So the answer is this: olives and avocados, 2 of the best fats you could possibly think about. But should we be eating 200 grams a day of fat? Should we be dropping our carbs below 50 grams per day? That's the question. And the other thing is, and I don't want to make this too long of an answer, which I already have, is that the truth is that they're really just doing a low-carb diet, but they're eating too much protein to even be in ketosis in the first place. So sometimes we're arguing about things that aren't necessarily relevant. And the keto diet, I'm going to do a podcast on this. The keto diet is honestly just turning back into the Atkins diet. That's really what's happening. It's really just turning back into the Atkins diet. And I don't say this in a mean way, but the problem is you have to follow a specific diet that's very close to about 70% or more fat, with your carbs being almost non-existent, right? And your protein being very, very low as well. That's the way that your body is going to start to get into what's called a survival-based state and produce ketones. Because it really won't if there's enough protein. If the body can use amino acids to fuel gluconeogenesis in the liver, it's just not going to happen. Or if you're in more of a fight or flight-based situation, again, if you're not producing ketones, it will start to break down muscle tissue mass. So there's a lot that isn't talked about in the mainstream about keto. I have no problem with it. We do a low-carb diet to help people with weight loss in the beginning, but we transition them off of that. I'll go on for a half hour on this. So, Judy, as a homozygous APOe4, I recommend no more than 10 to 20% of your diet coming from fat of all sources, ideally low saturated fat, mostly monounsaturated fat, coming from olives and avocados, some polyunsaturated fat, potentially coming from wild fish if you're into eating fish. So then you're just not taking chances that you don't need to, because you don't need to be on a keto diet. Nobody lives longer on a keto diet because there's no research that shows that. But there's a ton of research from all the blue zones and every other research that they've shown that people who eat predominantly plants and plant-based food live a longer life. I've done shows on that. So again, I have to stop because I've already gone on for 8 minutes on this question. And that's why I'm not good at these weekend host calls, because I want to turn them into their own episode. So Judy, that's what I would do. I can't give you medical advice, but that's what I would do. And I feel really comfortable telling you that, because worst case, I'm wrong that keto is the best diet in the world. A plant-based diet is like a 1A and 1B, right? Because everything right now in terms of cancer research is eat more plants. All right. So Cole's up next. I would love to hear your opinion on Kratom or Kratom and whether or not you think it's safe to consume regularly. Thank you. All right, Cole, not to steal your thunder, but I will be doing a Friday review coming up in the next 2 weeks or so on Kratom, and I will give you my take on that. It was never something that I was interested in using, But for our listeners and our community, I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to test it out and see if there's any credence behind all the hype. And I will share that with you in the next coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. It's on the way. Rob's up next. Hello, Dr. Cabral. First of all, thanks for all you do. I discovered your podcast a year ago and I'm hooked. I bought your book a few weeks ago and I really enjoyed it. I'm also not sure if this is the correct spot to send questions to your podcast. So if not, I apologize. I'm a 40-year-old male. Over a decade, I have been dizzy and I suffer from anxiety. I'm always tired. About 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr virus and it was pretty bad. 2 years ago, I noticed white spots on me and have been diagnosed. Vitiligo, I suffer from heart palpitations. Just this morning, went to the ER for chest pains, came back normal, as it did at other times at the ER. I have issues with my blood work, low white blood cells, high MCHC, low monocyte value, elevated bilirubin. I can remember a time where I felt good. I exercise, eat well, and have been to numerous doctors and specialists, can't find anything wrong. I'm hoping that maybe you're able to see something that they don't. Any help is appreciated. All right, Rob, happy to help in any way that I can. Vitiligo, for those that don't know, is a condition where there's patches on the skin with a loss of melanin. So we basically get white spots on the skin, and it can happen with any race. Obviously, it's more pronounced if your skin is darker and there's more melanin to begin with. So I can give you all different types of recommendations, okay? So if this happened with Epstein-Barr virus initially, when it first kicked in, or at least looking at Epstein-Barr virus, we can look at the body sometimes losing a lot of mitochondrial-based function. There can also be a lot of oxidative stress in the body when you do have Epstein-Barr virus, and how hard the body's working to actually kill pathogens and viruses as well. Sometimes that can actually damage the melanin in the skin. So they don't know specifically why vitiligo occurs, the white spots, but there are two main theories. So one is that the body is depleted of certain things that require melanin. So how does your body actually produce melanin? Well, it needs copper, it needs vitamin C, it needs tyrosine, and it needs something called PABA or PABA. And so when we look at this specifically, we say, okay, well, someone could be deficient in those. That's certainly a possibility. But also when I see someone with your blood levels of higher MCHC, and we know that there's oxidative stress and we know that there's a dysfunctional immune system, you could be really low on your antioxidants, because there's a theory that oxidative stress, as I just said, can cause this change in the pigmentation. However, there is also another theory that, and people get great results basically with both, saying that the loss of melanin in the white spots in the skin is actually caused by a fungal-based infection, both topically and internally as well. You can use hydrogen peroxide or other tea tree or things like that topically on the skin, which seems to work for some people. But I also recommend running an organic acids test and potentially a stool test as well, organic acids test for the yeast and a stool test for the bacteria, to check to see if that could potentially be the issue as well. Most likely you were on quite a bit of antibiotics, and I'm sure this could have something to do with it. So not possible to give you a full recommendation without knowing what's going on and what's causing these issues in the first place. Blood work is great, but it's just the start. Remember, for the most part, you're not going to be able to figure things out with the blood work alone unless there's a really deep imbalance, such as autoimmune-based condition. But remember, even then it's just a set of symptoms. Run some deeper levels of labs. My recommendation, the organic acids test, the stool test, and the hair tissue mineral analysis. Those would be my recommendations. You'll have all your minerals, all your vitamins, and also exactly what's going on with the gut as well. All right, Sandy's up next. Sandy is writing in, Dear Dr. Cabral, I was diagnosed with high-risk HPV after my last pap smear, and I really wanted to help my body expel the virus ASAP. Could you give me some tips about the best way to do this? Thanks so much for your answer and everything else you do. I always start my day with your podcast. If anyone could help me, it is you, Sandy. All right, 2 podcasts that are going to help you. One is called How to Get Rid of Viruses, or How to Kill Viruses. And the second one, you can actually just go to stephencabral.com/podcast and type in HPV, and you will find the answer as well that you're looking for on previous shows for how I help many, many women in my practice with HPV. So let me know and my team know if you have any difficulty finding those podcasts, but for sure, you can simply go back and just go to stephencabral.com/podcast, type in any keyword you have. But the one that I would like you to check out is the first one on how to eliminate viruses, because I give you all the products and exactly how to do it, and link out specifically from my website, because we don't carry most of those products. All right, Sandy, hopefully that helps. Jay's up next. Dr. Cabral, what do you think about supplementing with bone marrow as an alternative to bone broth? I would think that ancient peoples would have eaten bone marrow, and so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts. I found a bone marrow supplement that comes from New Zealand raised cows. I'm not necessarily against this, Jay. There's a lot going on in bone marrow, though, that could actually amp up or ramp up your immune system. I'm not sure that we'd want to supplement with that necessarily all the time. I get worried in general about kind of overdoing what we might not have had that much of in our past, meaning like I think bone broth can be really, really great. And in Ayurvedic medicine, they would use it for the Vata body type and those body types that were a little bit more depleted to give them back many, many of their minerals. But what I'll say is this, is if you want, and again, this is my opinion, and I don't have an issue necessarily with you supplementing with some bone marrow every once in a while if you'd like, just obviously making sure that it's coming from a nice, clean, well-raised animal, cow, and in New Zealand you have some of the best, so I can't deny that, of course. But if you are eating animal itself and you're able to get the bone and you use the entire animal because you're giving gratitude to this animal for it essentially sacrificing itself so that you can have life, that you can eat more food. And I know that there's a lot of vegan-based listeners literally rolling their eyes and very upset at me, and I understand both sides, and all I'm trying to do is help people from both sides. That's it. Is that you would simply use the marrow from those bones of the animal that you already ate the tissue in the first place, and then use that to make a broth. Now, in that broth, you will have the minerals, and you'll also have the bone marrow as well. So that's how I would do it. And then I would use that to cook rice or to have a cup of bone broth with marrow in it between meals, or if you'd like, just with a meal. Because it's one of the best things you do for digestion is to simply have something hot, a hot ginger tea or something very warm at a meal, which allows you to build up more heat or fire in the belly, the stomach, which is what allows you to break down the food to a greater degree. So that's what I can recommend. I don't know that I can get behind daily supplementation of bone marrow. However, should you find benefit in it, maybe once or twice a week, that could be something that you add in. But it's not something that I would be adding in specifically in my practice unless I saw someone and I saw some of the immunological benefits of adding that in as well. So hopefully that helps, Jay. We have Jamie's question. We're going right on to Jamie. Jamie says, hello, I have a question about my 10-year-old son. He has had some bouts of anxiety over the course of the last 2 years. Nothing super dramatic, but somewhat concerning when it occurs. A week or two of being fearful of eating, a fear of choking, fears about something bad happening to him or his loved ones, fears of getting in trouble at school, and he's a great student. A friend of mine mentioned that it's a possibility of Panda's syndrome, but after reading about it, he doesn't have most of the common symptoms, OCD and tics, but I can see where some of his fears overlap with some of the common Panda's fears. What would you suggest as a starting point for testing? Some say all kids go through being fearful, but I can't help but wonder if there's more to the story. Is there something in particular you recommend as a starting point for young patients who struggle with anxiety? Thanks for your help. Yeah, this is really important, Jamie. Thank you for writing in. We do work with a fair amount of children, and it's more troubling when we work with children because we just know that they're so innocent, and this is obviously somewhat out of their control. They don't understand what's going on. They don't have full control of their faculties, meaning like this is happening to them. Sometimes they have difficulty expressing why it might be happening, and we do. So I agree with your friend who mentioned that there could be a bacterial-based issue. There could be a fungal-based issue. I highly recommend running the organic acids test. I recommend running the stool test, and I recommend running the hair tissue mineral analysis. Okay, why would I recommend running those to you? Organic acids test is going to show that gut permeability. It's going to see if there's any fungal-based overgrowth, any type of C. diff. We're not talking with you, obviously, in the practice, so I don't know if maybe your 10-year-old had antibiotics 3 months ago, 6 months ago, before this. I don't know if he was exposed to more heavy metals, such as aluminum, because this could be a heavy metal-based issue. I don't know if he's been under stress over the last year or so in school or with sports or anything stressful for him, and he's depleted of a lot of his B vitamins, such as B12 or B6 or even vitamin C. I don't know if he's depleted of levels of zinc. So all of these things matter, and they can cause actual anxiety, higher levels of copper. So what we want to do is we really just want to see what's going on with your son and see if we can help to really correct those imbalances. Could be a higher level of omega-6 catching up after years, right? And a lower level of omega-3. just because maybe he is a picky eater. So there's so many things that it can be. Of course, we can run a gambit of tests, but if you are looking to choose which would work best for you, I would move you more towards the organic acids test, the hair tissue mineral analysis, and then the stool if you're able to as well. If you could do a fourth, it would be the omega-3. I understand that there's a cost to all of these, so I want you to do what you feel is best for you. But those are the things that we'd be looking at within either our practice or, of course, if you find a local functional medicine doctor that could help you and specializes in digestive-based issues and children health issues, then, of course, look there as well. Okay? We just want to be a sounding board. We want to help you as much as we can. Mary's writing in, hi there, my name is Mary. I'm going to leave out your last name, Mary, since we keep it to first names only. My name is Mary. I'm 21 years old. I've been listening to the podcast for a while now, ever since I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme last year. I've been very interested in functional medicine and trying to help myself feel better. I was on antibiotics for a while and now take Valtrex twice a year with many other supplements, including activated charcoal, probiotics, vitamin C, cod liver oil, and a stamina blend. My doctor also has me on a diet of no dairy, no gluten, no fruit, and no sugar. No dairy, gluten, and sugar has been easier to give up, but the natural sugars and fruit has been much harder. I was wondering, is this a normal diet to have? Also, I am almost equal in all Ayurvedic doshas and want help with my diet to reflect that now. How can I cater to all doshas while following this Lyme diet? Thank you for your help. Hope to help people as well as you do one day. Mary, thank you for writing in, and I have no doubt that you will. You're 21. You're already getting started. You're well on your way. I've got a couple years on you. All right, so this is what I'm looking at. So there are things that you do initially with Lyme. So if I'm working with someone with Lyme, there's an initial protocol. Okay, the initial protocol is to destroy, just like antibiotics would, any type of bacteria, spirochete, parasite, babesia, whatever's there. Okay, we're looking to eliminate that. The next phase is to then rebuild, restructure the gut, as well as the cellular mitochondria. We can do that within 12 to 16 weeks, okay? 12 to 16 weeks, really good gut-based protocol. We'll call it destruction protocol. And then another 12 weeks on that end of rebuilding the gut and the mitochondria. So removal first, then rebuilding, okay? So we're at about 3 months and 3 months, 6 months. And then after that, going back to a normal diet. Removing all fruit from your diet, not only is it not beneficial in the long run, it's completely unnecessary. Because if you add fruit back in, it's basically you're saying, okay, we didn't fix the problem. Because if we're adding fruit back in and your body's that dysregulated that it starts to react to fruit, well, you're feeding things that shouldn't necessarily be there. And so that's why there has to be a removal. And I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what you've done and gone through. Of course, I don't recommend taking activated charcoal on a daily basis. A lot of people don't understand that activated charcoal is for poisoning. Okay, you use that if you've been poisoned or you need to remove something from your system or you're doing an intestinal cleanse. You don't take it every day because it will bind up minerals, okay? It will bind up the good and it will bind up the bad. Don't bind up the good. You use it for a specific period of time. You don't use activated charcoal every day. That's the problem I have with the supplement industry, is that the way a lot of these companies make money is they say you need to use it forever, right? Our Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol, 12 weeks. Gut rebuilding protocol, 12 weeks maximum. Our intestinal cleanse, 5 days. Our parasite protocol, 6 weeks. You don't do these things forever. The only reason you ever do them forever is because you haven't then got the body strong enough to take over on its own. My job is to give you the diet, the supplements, the lifestyle, everything like I wrote about in the Rain Barrel Effect, so that you eliminate whatever you need to. You give your body a push for sure, without a doubt, with nutritional supplements, just like your doctor's been trying to help you with. But then you have to get your body to take over. Because in the long run, you're 21. What about when you're 81, right? We don't want to do this for the next 6 decades, right? Okay. So this is what we want to do. We want to see what are the imbalances, if any. Like if you start to add fruit back in and you feel terrible, what are the imbalances? Is there Candida overgrowth from all the antibiotics you take or you took? Probably. Really good possibility. So you run an organic acids test, right? I'm a database person because if someone comes into me with symptoms, I can try to help them based on symptoms, and I will, right? But there's going to be just a little bit more trial and error. But if someone could run some lab tests, well, now I can pinpoint and say, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then this, and then you start to wean off and you feel better. So that's how we do it. In terms of your Ayurvedic doshas, well, if you are truly a tridosha, the three doshas, tridosha we called it, and you're balanced, it's very rare, but it's possible, but rare, that all you're doing is then balancing for what you're dealing with in your current state, as well as the seasons. And I'll be talking about that more. So every week I'm doing a new Ayurvedic show. Because remember, Ayurveda is, this is in depth, right? This is a beautiful and sweet science that's been around for 6,000 years. And so when we start to move, and I kind of base everything on New England, of course, but as we start to move to the winter, well, you need to start balancing the kapha-based and the vata-based dosha. And the reason is that they're going to be affected to it to a greater degree. And I would say even vatas to the highest degree, and those people in the kapha-based state with more of a hypothyroid are going to be affected as well. So we'll talk about that. Like at that time, we're going to get you on more of a heating-based diet, right? So that's what we'll talk about in the future. Just stay tuned. Every single week, we'll be doing a new Ayurvedic podcast. We're finishing up next week with our dosha analysis. And next week, coming up, you'll be able to actually learn that there's 10 total types of doshas, right? 3 main types and 7 subtypes. We'll go over those. And I'm going to be putting up a bunch of celebrity and athlete-based photos so that you can kind of match up your body to what it might look like with one of those people. And so I just think it might be a fun exercise. I think it's a fun exercise. I've never really seen it done. So I wanted to be just one of those persons or people to bring it to the forefront. I just think Ayurveda is something that we all need to know because it leads to acceptance of our own body, which is pretty much the highest state that you can get to. Like, this is me. This is who I am. I'm proud of who I am, but I need to keep myself balanced for me, not for anyone else, but for me. I need to balance my health, balance my body. If I get too thin, I need to put on weight. If I gain too much weight, I need to take off some of that weight, right? So it's all about balance, and it's about you. It's about taking care of yourself, and then hopefully teaching others to do the same, which it sounds like exactly you want to be doing. So looking forward to hearing your name one day for sure. And let's keep it at that for today. So we're up about our 30-minute mark. I'm going to keep it at that. Looking forward, as always, each and every weekend answering more of your questions. If today's show was helpful, please do pass it on to anyone else you feel it may serve. And I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow on our Motivation and Mindset Monday. Stay tuned because I have a brand new stress test for you to take. Take care. Before you go, I wanted to ask you this question. What if I could teach you in just a couple of hours how to transform your thyroid, hormones, adrenal, cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight loss, energy, mood, brain, pregnancy, anti-aging, or many other health-related issues? After 20 years in private practice, after seeing and overseeing 250,000 client appointments, I sincerely feel I have the real-world data and have found the answer you've been searching for. So what I've done is spent hundreds of hours of my own time refining what you need to know in order to uncover your underlying root cause health issues and then begin to rebalance the body and bring it back to a state of robust health and wellness. I'm going to teach you exactly what I do in my private practice so you can understand how you got here and now what you need to do in order to heal. You'll receive all of the important success checklists, protocols, and even ways to customize it to make the program fit your busy life. And you'll get all of this at a fraction of the price. Let me save you the time, money, energy, stress, and frustration of not knowing what to do next. Instead of reading dozens of books on the topic and seeing multiple practitioners, I will condense everything that you need to know in just a few hours of video tutorials that you can watch and listen to anywhere. Together, we will make this healing process an enjoyable one that you can take with you for the rest of your life. I wish you all of the best of health and happiness, and I hope to be able to guide you on your healing journey through my Health Results Accelerators. Simply choose the health imbalance you're currently suffering from, and by the end of today, you'll know what went wrong and how to get well again. I guarantee it. For details, head over now to stevencabral.com/courses.